In this episode, I talked to Suzanne Vanden Schrieck, who's a craniotherapist from Portugal. If you now think craniotherapy, what is that? That's what I thought 3 years ago when I first met her. But I can tell you that working with Suzanne and other craniotherapists ever since has played a massive role in regulating my nervous system again after it's been in chronic stress for many, many years from silent job inflammation. On top of that, it has helped me to recover a lot of weird symptoms that I've had over the years where many doctors frankly had no answer. We covered everything from how the nervous system actually works, what happens when it gets out of balance, and most importantly, what can be done to treat these, either with someone like Suzanne or doing it by yourself at home. And again, the best part is there's a good chance that there's a craniotherapist living near you. I hope you enjoy this conversation. As always, I appreciate if you subscribe, like, share it with your friends, and now enjoy watching it. I really enjoy this conversation. No, exactly. Cool. Well, it's actually, first of all, it's very good to see you again. I haven't seen you for what,
Yeah,
must have been like a year
good to see you. Good to
when I had you. Yeah, exactly. Now that we got it working. And no, I'm really, I always say this almost, if people watch my videos, they will see me here that I always say I'm very excited about this conversation. And it's true every time I talk to someone. I think it's because there's always so interesting people that I've met over the years.
yeah.
And I've known you now for, I was thinking about this today, 3.5 years, I think it's been. So, right, it was like 2021. And I remember at the time thinking when I first came to your office after the first session, I was thinking like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
But yeah, before,
you came
yeah,
quite some a lot of problems, a lot of symptoms, and
yeah,
well explained. It was not clear what was going on.
I had no idea. But yeah, so yeah, it's obviously I've become a huge fan of what you do. It's helped me tremendously, and I'll talk about this in a second. How I've actually, I mean, why I actually came, because I think there was a good reason for it. But yeah, before we start, let people know, who you are, where you based, what are you doing, what's your background, and yeah, then we're gonna dive into the main topic today, which is the nervous system and what you do as a craniotherapist. And again, welcome again. Also after 38 minutes of not audio not working.
So, hello, Dennis. Thanks for having me. So, my name is Suzanne Vanden Schrieck. I'm from Belgium. I'm currently living in Portugal. I've been in a few different places. I lived a little bit in Czech Republic. I've done volunteer work in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And eventually I ended up here in Portugal, close to Lisbon, almost 10 years ago. Almost 10. And my background, well, what do I do at the moment is craniosacral therapy and visceral therapy. And I combine that with nervous system work and herbal medicine. Originally, my formation originally is in osteopathy, but I quit practicing osteopathy for bureaucratic reasons here in Portugal, and because I'm just much more fascinated with the craniosacral rhythm, the mobility of organs, and the nervous system, vagal system, that connects all this, how we function.
Right. You've already mentioned a lot of words that we're gonna uncover today, what they actually mean. You talked about the nervous system, the vagal nerve. Again, I didn't know any of these words when I first met you. I just at the time I think it was the chiropractor that I was working with at the time, Eduard,
Yeah,
who referred me
Dr.
to
Giro.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I think before we even get into this, I feel like you've helped me so much when I had all these surgeries before you actually got the same dental surgery that I got, by the way.
Yeah.
I just realized, right?
Yeah.
We both had this inflammation in the bones.
Yeah.
What is your journey? Because I feel every therapist that I've talked to before or worked with, everyone kind of has their own story of how they get into this area that they're in. And usually people also have their own background. I guess you also had certain challenges of health at one point that made you go into this direction, or was there a different reason for it?
Um, I've actually since forever, since I was a child, I was interested in herbs, herbal medicine, natural way of healing things. As a teenager, I did the course in Reiki. I was reading about shiatsu, Chinese medicine philosophy, a bit of psychology. So I was always interested in like how does this body function, how does this mind function, and how are they related to one another. So by the time I was 18, it was about time to study something for real, you know. Finishing high school, and at that moment, actually, I was doing a year training in shiatsu. Don't know if you are familiar with shiatsu.
Is it the one where you have the drums, the sounds or something? Or am I mixing
Shiatsu
that
is
up?
actually it's similar to Chinese medicine, so it's based on the meridians, the energy lines on the body. But instead of putting needles on the acupuncture points, you stimulate them with pressure and with massage.
Okay,
So you work on the Chinese medicine meridian system.
got it.
So it's holistic. It's a holistic approach to health. And when I was in that course, it just happened to be we were talking with our teacher, and somebody said, "Yeah, this thing I heard about craniosacral therapy, but what is that? Big mystery. What is it? Craniosacral therapy?" And the teacher actually explained really short what it worked with, and he said, "Well, all the tissues in the body they have their own rhythm autonomously. So if you, for example, whether you put your hands on the shoulders or on the head, you will always feel an expansion and a contraction. And that's a rhythm that happens like between 7 and 14 times a minute, can be faster, can be slower. And this rhythm is actually the vitality of your body, the pulse of your nervous system. The organs have this, the legs, the head, every tissue in the body has this. And that's what they work with. That's how they work with health. And I was completely fascinated by it. That's so fascinating. The body having this continuous pulsation. So I looked into it. I was at the end of secondary school. I looked into it. I thought I want to learn this, and I found out craniosacral therapy actually originates from osteopathy. Osteopathy is like a bit more than 100 years old. It works with the structural system, it works with the visceral system, your organs, and it works with the craniosacral system. That's osteopathy, these three fields together, the interaction between the three fields. So since it was time to study, I decided I will then study osteopathy, and from there specialize into craniosacral therapy, or in that case, cranial osteopathy. So that's actually
Got it.
where my interest came from.
Yeah. And I want to lead already with a little bit of a provocative question. Obviously, I don't agree with that, but I'm just saying if you throw on the Google and you go on Wikipedia, it actually says on Wikipedia right away, craniosacral therapy is a pseudoscience. Its practice has been characterized as quackery. It is based on fundamental misconceptions about the anatomy and physiology of the human skull and is promoted as a cure-all for a variety of health conditions. I mean, what do you make out of a statement like that? You've been around for a long time. There's craniotherapists. I would say in almost every big city that I can think of that I've been traveling to, I found people doing this. There's like a lot of other studies saying basically, the healing rate for people going this, they feel significantly better. We're going to dive into all these specifics later on. But why do you feel it still hasn't caught on as an accepted therapy that people would say this actually has a real benefit?
Whether it's accepted as a therapy, well, for example, it really depends from country to country whether it's accepted or not. In New Zealand, for example, everybody uses craniosacral therapy with good results. In Switzerland, it's much more known. You can even find craniosacral therapists in hospitals. Um, that it's a pseudoscience, well, there's still a lot that science has not caught up with. Science is a developing field. Um, yeah, it will catch up over time, I guess.
Yeah, no, let's definitely hope so. All right, then let's actually break it down. So before we actually even go into the specifics of how you treat people, because again, this is very unique. When I first heard about it, when I first did it, I felt, what is this? But before we go there, let's actually talk about the nervous system itself. Like why is the nervous system so important? And what is it that you think a lot of people are also not aware of, that they don't know about it, or maybe also not give enough credit to, in particular when it comes to potential of actually healing a lot of the symptoms or root causes even that people have?
Can you recapitulate your question? The importance of the nervous system.
Yeah, like what is the reason that sort of like what makes the nervous system so unique and so special, and in particular the potential that it has to actually fix a lot of health issues that people have?
Well, if you work with the nervous system and if you regulate the nervous system, if you that means that you can adapt to the circumstances. But if you work with the nervous system, you actually have influence on everything in the body and in the mind. Because the nervous system is our big sensor. It picks up information from inside of us and from around us. The nervous system is what connects us to our body, and our body is what keeps us alive, is our life experience. If you disconnect from the body, if you lose your body, for sure, life is over. But if you disconnect from the body, you miss out on a whole load of life experience. So if you work with this nervous system and you regulate it so that you don't have peaks in stress, you're not all the time in stress, or you're not all the time in passivity, you have an influence on your entire experience, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
And what is the nervous system made up of? I don't know if you already mentioned that. You spoke about the vagal nerve, but also if you could break that down. And of course, there's the parasympathetic mode and the sympathetic mode,
Yeah,
which I never heard about before until I did these surgeries. And it was the first time when I felt so incredible when they took out that inflammation in my bone.
yeah,
And it felt like there was a I mean, I kid you not, it felt like there was a lightning stroke going through my body after the surgery when they hit a certain nerve. And I don't think I've ever felt so relaxed in my life. And then I had the same experiences when I worked with you. So how would you what is this, the parasympathetic mode and the sympathetic mode?
yeah, yeah. What they did with removing the silent infection out of your jawbone, they removed the pockets which was containing a lot of toxins, metabolic toxins that leak into your system, and that continuously was triggering your stress system. So by taking that away, you take away a big stressor, and suddenly this toxic load is out of your body, and suddenly your nervous system has energy to stabilize and to experience everything in a more comfortable way. So the nervous system, we are talking in this case about the autonomic nervous system, and that has a sympathetic branch and a parasympathetic branch. The sympathetic branch is activity, it's fight flight. It's mostly known as fight flight, but it's also activity in a positive way. It's also play, it's also work, it's challenges, it's excitement, it's all the things in which you burn energy. And then there is the parasympathetic branch, which is referred to as rest and repair or rest and digest, which is the state of your nervous system in which you recover. You recover energy, you build up your body, you process your experiences, you process your food, and you rest and repair. And in this parasympathetic nervous system, a part of it is the vagal nerve. The vagal nerve has a dorsal branch, which is known for a stress response like freeze, the stress response of dissociation, numbing, not feeling anything. If there is too much overwhelm, you can simply stop feeling, freeze. But the vagal nerve also has a ventral branch, and that ventral branch is important for social connection. So connecting with other people, core regulation, feeling of belonging. It's our social nerve.
I have to say this is probably one of the most important things that I realized when my nervous system is out of tact and I'm in this constant stress. And again, I didn't even know this before. Even when I was, I realized when I did the surgeries that I had been in stress for years. And even when I thought I was relaxing, I was laying in my bed and I thought I'm relaxing now. I was not relaxing.
Yeah,
And I even thought, I wouldn't say that I thought that I had ADHD,
yeah,
but it was sort of, I had this constant restlessness. And I never realized that I had some kind of stressor in my system the whole time, I guess. And what the other important thing was, so first of all, this ability, and I had this after the surgery too, where I remember sitting in my living room. I had no urge to use my phone. I had no urge to just kind of numb myself, basically, be on the phone. I had no urge to eat something. I had no urge. I kid you not, I was just sitting on my couch and looking outside of the window at the tree.
yeah,
It was so, I felt like, Star Wars, the movie, like I felt like a Jedi.
yeah,
I felt so in peace. And the other thing that I realized, so I'm curious what you said about the belonging piece. I feel the way that I am with people, I feel so much gentler. So I'm not as, again, as German, I don't know what's the phrase in English, but basically people cannot tick me off so quickly. I was so zen. I was so understanding, empathetic. And I even had less urge to go on Twitter to look for very aggressive news and to provoke people and to pick up fights. And I had a very, almost like when you come off of a MDMA trip, you kind of have this whole, you feel like you said, you feel very plugged in,
yeah,
right?
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting what you mentioned first. Like you realized that you were living in a state of a lot of stress, high stress levels, and you didn't realize it. Because if you stay in a stressful state for a very long time, this becomes your normal. This becomes your baseline. And if you go from very stressed to a little bit of stress, you think a little bit of stress is actually no stress because you compare it with higher stress levels. So your reference frame changes.
Yeah. No, again, for me, this was like discovering fire, or something like that. It was just so, and I think I'm curious now for you to explain a little bit about how this actually work when you work with someone, because again, from my perspective as a patient, again, when I met you and I kept having these issues with the neck, and so I always went to see a chiropractor. And at one point, he was sort of out of options. I still had some weird symptoms, and he said, you should talk to this woman that I've met before. She's working with my kids, and then I went there. I was laying down, and I was just saying, is she even doing anything?
Yeah.
And I guess everyone is thinking that, you're paying money and then you think like this person is not doing anything to me. So
Yeah.
explain to me, like, how does a session working with you, someone like you, actually work?
Yeah. So the patients come to me, we talk a little bit, and then the patient lays down on the treatment table. And then I put my hands, whether it's on the feet, on the shoulders, or on the head, can be anywhere on the body. And what I try to feel, what I'm feeling, is the spontaneous rhythm of the body, whether that is symmetric, whether the expansion goes back to neutral, goes back to contraction, and whether that's all in balance. And I look for micro movements. There might be a tension pattern, like I put my hands on the shoulder and one hand just floats off into a tension pattern, while I actually simply want a balanced, I want to feel a balanced rhythm. So micro movements, tension patterns, and the rhythm that's there spontaneously. That's what I'm looking for. When a craniosacral therapist tunes into this rhythm, imagine we would like put these sensors on the head and we would measure the brain activity. We have alpha brain waves, we have beta brain waves, we have theta brain waves, there's some more. When we measure this activity, when the patient is in treatment, the patient goes to a state or can go to a state of theta brainwave, which is a brainwave which is the same as being in a deep meditation. Or like in the morning, just before waking up, you start to realize that you're waking up, but you're not awake yet. You're already aware of where you are, but you're not responding yet. It's this in-between state, between waking and sleeping. And when people are in that state, actually the nervous system can reset. Like a computer, when there are too many tabs open, you put on the reset button. When I bring a person to a state of theta brainwave, it's similar like pushing the reset button. All the programs that are running, all the stress, the accumulated stress, the day-to-day pressure sort of winds down.
So how does it actually work in the system when you talk about it resets, or you kind of like, I mean, what really happens inside the body?
What happens inside the body?
Yeah, when you say it resets, like what actually happens when you say, okay, you can actually reset the nervous system, like turning on a light,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah. So the orthosympathetic tension goes down. So you're less tense, less stress, less the orthosympathetic or the sympathetic. Let's call it the sympathetic, not to mix up words. The sympathetic nervous system gets a bit of down regulation. So that means less tension in your muscles. Blood pressure goes a little bit lower. The heart rate goes less fast. Your blood circulation regulates itself towards a more neutral. There is more energy going through your digestive system. So stress levels basically go down. You're less focused on what's going on in the outside world, interaction, the tasks that you have to do. You come in a calmer state.
Yeah,
There's a bit more parasympathetic activity.
feels like walking on clouds again. I remember when I was the first time that I was there, it didn't work. So I think what you can explain this in a second, where you basically say kind of the system, I think, has to maybe also open up a little bit, right? If you have never done that before, that's how it felt. But I remember the second time that we did this, oof, I think I fell asleep most of the times that I was there, right? Because it just, when you've been stressed for so long, and then finally it feels almost unpleasant. It feels almost strange because it's like, I don't know, it feels so overwhelming.
It's like, how can I be so tired? But actually, tiredness was there all the time, but you were running so fast. You were so tied up into your stress system that you don't feel the need to rest anymore. So when you come out of your stress system, your stress levels go down. Suddenly you do feel that you need to rest.
Yeah. And I have to say, at the same time, I sometimes felt, even, I wouldn't say a little bit vulnerable after, like almost like a raw egg, because then suddenly you kind of, because when you're stressed constantly, ironically, you have this weird shell. And the weird thing is, when I was in constant stress, I was numb. I got a lot of work done.
Yeah.
But it's because I lost touch with my body completely. But inside, I wasn't dying inside, but I felt I wanted to break down, collapse, but I couldn't. Like, just relax, and I couldn't get it. Now it was the opposite. I've even had days where I felt too relaxed, where I felt like I didn't even want to work anymore. Like when I came back home after a session, and I couldn't work for the afternoon anymore because I was just so, first few times.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when your body goes to the parasympathetic nervous system and goes into rest and repair. And it just claims your body like, and now are we gonna rest? Because you, for weeks, for months, for years, maybe you have been working, staying in the stress levels, and you take down time from the rest and repair. So when you then for the first time go back to rest and repair, sometimes your body just claims the rest and repair and stays there because you need it.
Yeah. I don't whenever I have a craniotherapy session scheduled these days, I don't schedule anything after anymore, because sometimes actually, again, like you said, if I have been going a few times, then I don't have that same effect. But if I haven't gone for a long time and then I go, same with a chiropractor. I don't do anything after. I don't go to the gym. I don't meet people. I once made the mistake accidentally where I was at I think an osteopath who made some adjustments, so different from you do. But then for some reason, I also had this massive relaxation, and then I was going to meet a friend after. It was my birthday from Berlin, and we went to watch a movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a movie theater. I thought it was going to be a comedy, but then it turned out to be this action movie. And the whole 90 minutes was basically where they played a song. I don't know if it was D Moll or something. The guy kept talking about this, but it was meant to trigger you, the nervous system.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, I was just suffering so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, not again.
To be pulled in this activity. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was terrible. Like all the effect had been gone. It's like I hadn't done the session basically.
No, it's still there somewhere. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's very individual, by the way, how people respond to a treatment. Some people are drowsy for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then they're good and start the day. Some people have more energy after craniosacral therapy. And
Okay.
some people are finally able to rest. That's a little bit more your case. Like your body is finally, we're switched off into rest and repair, and now we are going to stay there a little bit.
Yeah.
But a lot of people come to a craniosacral therapy session and then continue with the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that many times myself. Like I said, it's just like when I haven't been for a long time, I can tell. What I'm actually curious about is actually what are the kind of issues that people come to you for? Like what are the kind of, obviously without mentioning, not mentioning details, but what symptoms do they have? What issue, maybe for what time? Because, like probably most people will not come to you if they feel fine.
Okay. There are actually two big types, two big groups of people that I work with. Some have the physical symptoms, physical problems, headaches, migraines, chronic sinusitis, back pain, neck pain, that kind of physical problems, digestive issues. And then there are the people who come specifically for example, emotional overwhelm, lack of energy, burnout symptoms, an overstimulated nervous system, just too much information, overwhelm, not being able to wind down again and to go to rest and repair. So these are two big groups. There are very good results for headache, for example. I have clients who have had headaches for many years, weekly, several days a week. And with craniosacral therapy, it goes down to maybe once a month, once every 2 months. And even with lasting effect, chronic sinusitis as well, for example. That's a bit easier to explain because we have here the sinuses. They are inside the bone. The bone has a certain flexibility. If that flexibility get compromised, for example, something hit your face or dental work, extensive dental work, implants, somehow there is a compression in this system and the drainage of the sinus doesn't work well anymore. And therefore you can get chronic sinusitis. With craniosacral therapy, we can restore this flexibility and restore this draining mechanism. It gets resolved, can get resolved. If the problem is a flexibility problem, lack of mobility, then we can work with it with craniosacral therapy, for example. Another interesting thing is also pain after fractures. So you have a fracture, you fracture your leg, your ankle, or you sprain your ankle. Everything gets healed. The doctor is 100% happy, says there's no problem, everything is normal, and you still get pain there. It still feels fragile. Or you still, every time the weather changes, you feel pain in the place where it was, where there used to be a fracture. This has to do as well with the micro movements. It's a tissue memory. There is a functional pattern in the micro movements, which is not straight anymore. If we straighten that out, if we balance that out, there can be a very positive effect on these kind of symptoms or even disappear.
I mean, I had this, I don't know, I don't think I've told you this even. Don't get shocked, everything's fine, but I had a tumor surgery a couple weeks ago.
What?
I don't know if I told
Tumor.
I had a tumor.
Okay.
I mean, I'm laughing. It's because everything went well, gladly. But so I had this, in the, what is it called? I forgot the word. What's the word? Let me just look this up. It's behind the ear.
Okay.
A parotid gland. Yeah.
Okay.
It was benign, all good. But basically, what was interesting was that I was saying to them, I don't know, I have this pressure in my neck the whole time, right? And I went to my chiropractor, and he was doing some things, but it didn't really make a difference. And then I asked the professor for the surgery. I said, like, if you take this out, because I had to take it out, is that going to go away as well? And he said, no, that's impossible. Like this cannot be related. If you have a tumor there, it doesn't give you symptoms like that.
Okay.
But then the interesting thing is, so after I did the surgery, I still had the same sensation. Sort of like I felt everything was, I don't know, just stiff and didn't really. It was not pleasant. I had a headache a long time, and I went to cranial therapy again
Mm-hmm.
for a long first time in ages. And I think it took 2 sessions, and it's improved a lot, like incredibly well, right?
Yeah.
And I had so many of these stories. I had, as you know, surgeries in the jaw area. I had scars, which you might also remember. And the interesting thing is that you even get to, I would like to hear your thoughts on that. You even work also on the scar. I mean, you mentioned the tissue, on the scar tissue.
Yeah.
You have even worked on my teeth, Derek.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
It also has to do with the flexibility of the tissues, micro movements. So if there is a scar always has a tendency to contract and create a tension field, which doesn't belong there. And even though that's often, we're talking about very small differences in tension. If that tension would be there for a day, there would probably be no problem. The body can deal with that. But if it is there day after day after day, it starts to influence the function of the tissues around it. It gives information to your nervous system, and over time, this becomes an overstimulation.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I'm also curious about is you can kind of read a person's body, and like you can kind of read a person's history, a medical history to some degree, if that's the right way to put it. Because when I first met you, and again, I've said to you before that I'm very, explicitly, I'm happy to talk about my own
Yeah,
details here.
yeah,
Because for me, I've learned about a lot of my things because I watched YouTube and people
yeah,
commented in the section, and I've learned about stuff. So for me, I feel it's almost like this kind of give back in that sense, where I'm not holding back some of the issues I've had. But you asked me if I've had a car accident,
yeah,
which I did, and I met you in 2021. I had a car accident 10 years ago, and you were able to actually feel it. I don't remember. I had it at the spleen, I think on the left side. And maybe also because I told you that I had some pain every now and then, nothing dramatic, but I felt there was always a tension.
yeah, yeah,
But you actually asked me even before that if I've had a car
yeah.
accident. So how did you feel something like that?
Because a car accident is a mechanical impact, and the whole body gets that impact. And depending of the flexibility, the elasticity of the tissues deal in a different way with impact, with mechanical impact, with a force. And in this case, for example, we are talking about the ligament between the spleen and the stomach. This ligament has a certain elasticity. Often, when you are in a car accident, your whole body gets the impact. The stomach gets an impact, the spleen gets an impact, the liver gets an impact. And this impact pulls on the ligament. And if it pulls too hard, you stretch over the elasticity, the mechanical limit of what this ligament can take. So you harm the elasticity actually. So if you compare this with a normal elastic, we all know a normal elastic, it's elastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go too far, it will not go back. And in terms of body tissue, that means once you go too far, it doesn't go completely back anymore, but it starts to harden and contract. And so what I feel in the body is that this ligament is not elastic anymore, it is hardened. Most likely this is a car accident.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Again, this was
Car
fascinating.
accident years ago. This doesn't happen
Yeah.
immediately. This is a process that starts. Same with whiplash. Basically, with whiplash, you also pull on certain tissues in the neck that are not elastic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pull on them because your whole head is pushed forward, you get mechanical changes in these tissues. which then over time or immediately start to result in neck problems, headaches, sleeping problems, lower back pain. It can be any symptom basically, depending of how the body adapts and compensates.
I was actually quite fascinated to read. I was, doing some research also on some of the really severe issues that some people have had where craniotherapy helped them. I mean, there was
Yeah,
spinal cord injury, fibromyalgia, PTSD, war veterans,
yeah,
spinal cord injury. And then you talked about sleep enhancement as well. I mean, there's a lot of studies around this. This is yeah, and I think I guess you would also say it's not like a magic pill, obviously, right? It's not sort of like that. But what I felt is that any improvement already feels like, even if you're not completely would be considered cured or whatever, I feel like any kind of improvement that you have, because if you, like you say, you compare it to what you knew before,
yeah,
and it's gonna feel like a massive win.
yeah.
The other thing I'm curious about, so this is also some. Sorry, go.
Many of the things that you mention, spinal cord injuries, okay, then we're thinking of accidents, and we think of these are things that happen deep inside the body. It's scary. It causes stress. You might be afraid for the future. So this brings your body towards a sympathetic tuning. You want to fight or flight. If you get a serious diagnosis, the doctor says you have a cancer, you might want to run away, but you cannot run away because this happens inside your body. If you want to if you need to go to surgery, your biological impulse is to run away. Somebody will cut with a knife inside on your body. That's a good reason to run away, right? But rationally, we know we're gonna stay because it's gonna make us better. So there is internal conflict. But in all these situations, you get high stress levels. And high stress levels, we go into the sympathetic nervous system, takes us out of the parasympathetic. And the parasympathetic is rest and repair. And what do you need when you have any form of injury or any kind of disease? Actually, you should be in rest and repair. So your body can heal itself. So you are in contact with your self-healing capacity. And for example, especially the example that you said, the fibromyalgia is typically something where the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system don't communicate well anymore. Normally, when we have stress, the sympathetic goes up, we experience stress, and the parasympathetic follows and puts a brake on it. So you never go too far out and you go down again in your stress levels. This is a self-regulating mechanism. If that gets disturbed, if you have both high parasympathetic and high orthosympathetic, or they don't communicate with each other anymore, you get dysregulation in your body, which might mean your muscles are always tense. And that
Right.
causes muscle pain. And you might not even know that your muscles are tense because they've been tense for so many years that you think this is normal. Why do they hurt? But actually, they're working really hard.
I've said this to everyone that I know. I mean, I've recommended this to so many people. Anyone who has had weird symptoms that, doctors cannot explain. I have to say, even though I find a lot of doctors that I've met, they're well intended, like they want to help people. But a lot of times you see this, sometimes this look in their eyes where you can see they cannot help you anymore. And they kind of feel almost, well, I have had doctors who said, I study what I get in the books that they teach me at universities. If it's not in there, it basically doesn't exist. So there's people that say, look, I don't know how to help you anymore. And I've told anyone, like, at least try cranial for a little bit. And that's also the other question I had. Obviously, you cannot give a generic answer, I guess, because every body is different. But what would you say is more or less the time that some people should spend and invest for to get better, right? Because we also live these times where everything is instant, and if I don't get it immediately, especially when people are used to taking pills, if I don't get immediately relief, then it's a waste of time and money.
Spend to get better. Well, there are different answers possible for this question.
In the context of cranial. Yeah.
In terms of craniosacral therapy, I want to see that the body responds within 3 treatments. Preferably, I see some response in the first session. Most of the time I do. But in some rare cases, as you know
Yeah.
personally, some
It
rare
was two for me.
cases, the body doesn't respond yet in the first session and doesn't respond yet in the second session because it's so stuck in the stress system that we have to keep convincing it and keep on offering an alternative before the body goes to less stress, a lower stress level. And in your case, as you remember, after the third session, I was a little bit desperate. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to help this guy. The body doesn't respond. What is happening? We should.
I'm stubborn.
And that's when you started to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went, whew, it works. And you probably as well.
Yeah, because this was kind of one of the straws. I don't even remember what I had at the time, but I still had some weird kind of symptoms. And I mean, to be fair, I'm on a physical level, I'm very sensitive, which is good and which is bad.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know what it was. It was something that was bugging me. And yeah, it was almost like a last resort, sort of, for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to do anything for me, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And you went through surgery. You had to do this chronic inflammation removed out of your mouth. Something.
Yeah. I had accumulated so much.
Is not recognized by therapists.
Which one is?
That very, very often it's not recognized by therapists that there is a silent infection in the mouth, a root canal, or
Oh yeah,
that's removed. It's knowledge. It is out there, but it's still rare to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's a whole different topic.
It's something that can dysregulate your entire body.
Yeah. I've had so many doctors saying to me, "Oh no, you're fine." I mean, I was what was I? 20. It started. I was 28, I think, when I started doing these surgeries. 27, and my blood results, they looked fine. Everything was fine, right?
Yeah, but
and doctors said,
says you are fine. When the doctor says you are fine, they are saying you are fine in the parameters that I can assess. Yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly.
But they don't say that last part, and they say you're fine as if they know it all, which is not the case. Every doctor follows parameters, and if these parameters don't show anything, there's nothing wrong. But there is, otherwise there wouldn't be symptoms. And a symptom is like a sign, is your body telling you something. That there is something, whether it's a physical cause or whether it's a dysregulation in the nervous system or whether it's a body memory from years ago. There is something.
What are some of the craziest symptoms or issues that people came in with, where you would think that you could actually help them with that? Because I remember I had issues with even my seeing abilities, like with my eyes.
Yeah.
Pressure, weird things on this. I mean, I've had a lot of weird stuff, and craniotherapy could help me with almost all of them. It's quite remarkable.
Because almost all of it had to do with the regulation in your nervous system. For example, if a person goes as a stress response which goes to freeze. When the body goes to freeze, we don't think clear anymore. Because freeze, you see that when a lion chases an animal and catches the animal goes flaccid, pretends to be dead, but it freezes. And at that moment, the rational brain goes offline. So you don't think clear anymore. You have brain fog, cannot concentrate. I forget everything. But if you go to a response of grief, you also, your nervous system tells your muscles not to move. Don't move. We shouldn't be seen. If we move, the predator will find us. Don't move. So you might be so tired that you cannot even move from the sofa to the kitchen anymore to get a glass of water. Because your nervous system believes right now, right here, it is better to freeze because it perceived something as a threat and responds to something it learned in the past.
I've actually also had that with the brain fog. I think that's a lot of people have that. And I think, when I was younger, a little bit more anxious with all these things. Now I'm a lot more relaxed. Also, thanks to you introducing me to Marlene. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But I feel I've had those moments where I felt I was. I mean, obviously, I don't have dementia, any of that at my age. But you kind of feel like, wait, what? You just forget random things. You just feel
Yeah,
you cannot articulate yourself very well, and it's really weird. And then, like you said, it's also the nervous system.
yeah. It's this daunting question of what is wrong with me? Because things don't seem to function the way they should, but nobody really knows why.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I've also learned at one point that you also treat babies. So you also treat or infants like really. What is that about? Like, why would you treat someone at that young age already, and why is it already effective for them?
Babies are still very flexible in their tissues, and babies, we sometimes forget that they, well, we don't forget, but they were born, and we don't always realize what that means. Going through the birth process means that a lot of force is put on that little body to force it through the birth canal, preferably not forced but guided, but very often the baby is being forced through the birth canal, which is a rather complex process, which involves a lot of force. And that means that tissues can already get compressed or get stuck, which has an effect to the nervous system, which makes the baby unsettled. We sometimes find patterns on the neck of babies, and we know if an adult would have this pattern, the adult would have a headache. If this pattern exists in a baby that cries all the time, probably the baby has a headache. If we treat this pattern and the baby stops crying, we made a difference, right? But the baby cannot tell you that it has a headache.
And the interesting thing is, going back to what you said, like muscle memory, you could even, because that's everyone asked me that also, if I've had a more, you know, a non-average birth, I guess, or if there was some issues when I had my birth, and my mom, I asked my mom about this, and she said, yeah, they had to get you with this, what was it called, this basically to pull me out.
The vacuum, like this.
Yeah, something like that, to put that on your head and to suck me out. But you could even see that in my nervous system almost 30 years after.
Yeah.
When I first met you.
Yeah. The nervous system of a baby is very receptive. It gets an imprint from everything. And at that moment, it learns something about the world. How do I relate to the world, and how does the world relate to me? And if the baby feels threatened, not safe, not supported, if things go too fast, the baby cannot process because it goes too fast, or the birth goes too slow and the baby feels stuck. This gives an imprint to the baby about, is this world a safe place or not? And you get very deep beliefs or approaches towards the world, which are already instilled at that moment of life.
So are you basically saying that either it could be almost advised to have someone like you there during the birth, or at least shortly after, to make sure, even if there have been any kind of imprints, to kind of nip it in the bud, so that it doesn't become part of that person's body memory, also basically the identity of the person with time.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
It would be very good if babies were checked shortly after birth, in the days after or the weeks after.
Wow.
To see if they are mechanically free to move, and to talk with the parents about the birth process.
I'm going to do that. I think that's a really interesting thing if you think of it. When you have your first, or any child, and then you make sure that they get checked accordingly. You spare them a lot of issues later on.
Babies are non-verbal, of course, they don't talk, so you have to communicate with them in a different way. And with very sensitive palpations, you can learn a lot about how the body is functioning.
The other thing I'm curious about is like, what is something that people can do in their day-to-day life where they maybe don't always go to an appointment with someone like you, but what are ways where, because I remember you've taught me a few things that I could do myself. So because of course everyone says, I don't want to be dependent. I don't want to. So
Yeah,
it's also it's not covered by every insurance in
yeah,
most countries, right? So you have to pay for it yourself. What are some things that people can do to also self-regulate, like improve their nervous system themselves on a daily basis?
yeah, yeah. It's a very good starting point not to become dependent of a therapist. Of course, we want people to live independent lives, right? But if you notice that you have a lot of fight-flight energy or freeze or high stress levels, some things that you can do yourself to regulate is, for example, put something cold in the face or cold water. But a more practical thing is you have these cold packs that you would put on an ankle, for example, or somewhere, and you take them into the face. This cold in the face stimulates the vagal nerve and helps you to wind down a little bit if you're in overdrive in stress. Do this during 30, 45 seconds. That's one thing. And another one, which is, well, I think it's a nice one, but not everybody is so happy if I say this, is to sing. Because the
To
vagal
sing.
nerve, yeah, to sing or to hum. Have I never given you that advice?
You might have, but it's like
You
I'm
forgot.
so embarrassed to sing.
Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to sing all day long and you don't have to sing loud. But the point here is the vagal nerve anatomically comes from the base of the skull, goes through the neck, goes through the chest, innervates here lungs, heart, digestive system. But somewhere here, a branch goes back to the vocal cord. So if you vibrate your vocal cord, you bring your vagal system, your nervous system, towards the vagal branch, the ventral branch. So your connection, your self-regulation comes back online. So how can you do that? You can simply hum. And if you don't want anyone to hear it, you take a pillow, you take a deep breath, you put the pillow in your face, and you zoom, you make your vocal cords vibrate. And you focus on this sensation of it's vibrating there. Where does this vibration go into my body? Do you feel it only in the throat? Do you feel it in the chest? Do you feel it in your back? And you just,
Is that even wow?
yeah, you can go, or you can go for oh, or ah. Take one of the vowels, an ah, an o, an oo, an e. They all have a little bit of a different effect. Explore it.
Wow.
If you don't want anyone to hear it, put the pillow in your face and feel what's going on.
Is it also something I could use? Let's say, I don't know, a lot of people have their stage fright. I don't know, they get nervous when they have to do an exam. They have to talk to a
Yeah,
large audience or a
yeah.
large crowd or
If
something.
you have to
That
do,
helps.
if you have to do something stressful, an exam or talking in public or a podcast like this, take 10 minutes for yourself and hum or sing and feel the vibration in your body. You will be more grounded. You will be more connected through your resources, and you will simply do a better presentation because you're more connected with yourself.
And I guess what you said about the cold, is it the same? Does it also work the same way? Because also, I'm just thinking a lot of people do the cold plunge, right? So it's
Yeah,
like a
but
big
I'm
thing
not
now.
talking about the cold plunge. I'm just talking
Okay, so
about
it's
some cold exposure in your face alone.
so really like literally on the face.
Yeah, just sometimes you see that in films, men are in a meeting and they get stressed and they walk to the bathroom and they look in the mirror to themselves and then they take water and they splash it in the face. That's what they're doing.
So it's almost like an instinct by human nature.
Yeah, our body knows how to regulate, but daily life goes too fast. We don't take time to regulate. And plunging water in your face, everything is wet, it's annoying, right? For women, even more, they might have makeup, or men might have makeup as well, of course.
Yeah, these days, yeah, especially if you live in Berlin.
Creams or
Yes, I've seen people.
no.
The-
But with a cold pack, it's so much easier. You take a cold pack, you can put a little bit of paper towel over it. You just hold it in your face, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And it just gives you a little bit of down regulation. Stress level just goes a little bit down.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned about last year, there was someone doing this. I don't know if I told you about this. They basically use an ultrasound, and I've done this where it's some guy that I met on Twitter, some American guy, and he built this. I don't know how he found out about this by accident, but so he's rubbing this the liquid, the fluid, basically on here. I don't know if you agree with what you say about it. I think that it's around here, also next to the. And then you put the ultrasound here, and it goes for like 5 to 10 minutes, pretty much. And I've done this at night, and I have to say, I don't think it's placebo, that it's super, like it has that kind of effect. Not the same when I go to session with you, but in my own little way, it has helped me. He was saying to me there were women that basically peed themselves because there was so much going into the parasympathetic mode. And yeah, what do you think about that in particular?
Well, you need a tool. You have to bring the tool with you. It's rather strong because it's a mechanical impulse from a tool. I would say one of the things you can do is simply stroke this area by hand. You feel your stress, you feel your anxiety, and just this area, just stroke it slowly, slower than I'm doing now. Yeah,
just a couple minutes, couple seconds,
couple of minutes, or you're in a meeting, nobody's looking at you, and you just connect with yourself. Massage this a bit behind the ear. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with sitting here and doing this a bit, right? Many people do it automatically.
By instinct, yeah.
This is not a weird movement.
Is that also the same thing? Because obviously there's a lot of people, they have insomnia, they have issues sleeping.
Yeah.
If they lay in bed and they activate the parasympathetic mode, like with those motions, will that also help them fall asleep?
It might help. It might help, but it might not be enough. There might be deeper patterns.
Yeah, no, of course.
That the body believes, I don't know what associations you have, consciously or unconsciously, very often unconsciously. Or that it's simply sleeping doesn't agree with your natural state of high stress levels. Being a workaholic, going to the rat race, I don't know. What do people do?
Yeah, no, that definitely.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, that I know from some of them is actually that the cold exposure in general helps. So I know that some of them, they cool down the room, so they have the AC on. I remember that when I was in Brazil, and I didn't have the AC on, and then I couldn't sleep at all. And when I turned it on, it was just like, oh.
Well, it's a normal rhythm of the body. To have good sleep, to sleep, the body needs to cool down. Mm-hmm. And to have good sleep, the body needs to warm up during the day, cool down at night. The body naturally cools down at night. That's why we take a blanket. Yeah, you don't, while during the day you would keep your normal body temperature. When you sleep, it goes down. During the day, you rise your temperature a little bit more. That's a cycle, a natural cycle that the physiology of the body has.
And what about the weight? Because I also know that there's blankets that people basically put so they have more weight on them, and that also helps them sleep.
Yes, because it calms the nervous system as well. Pressure, yeah. A weighted blanket, yeah. You can also, if you feel anxious, if you want to regulate your nervous system a bit, you can hold your own shoulders and squeeze and feel the squeezing. So I'm now pushing both hands on the shoulder, and I also push my elbows a little bit towards me. So I put compression on myself.
Like that?
Or if you want to make it a little bit more dynamic, you can just pat yourself on one side, pat yourself on the other side. Slowly.
And that's going to do what?
And you just slowly, your nervous system calms down a little bit.
Oh, impressive. Okay. Because I think that's amazing.
Stress routine. If you're in your stress routine, this might be very counterintuitive because it's boring. It will slow you down. And your biology is like, we have to speed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's yeah. But if things get too much, if you get in overwhelm, if you get into anxiety, this is one of the things. Just sit down and tap yourself until your nervous system settles a little bit more.
So you would also say, I mean, I've never had that, but you would say for, I don't know, when people have a panic attack or something like that, that could also help them, that they can.
But panic attacks are already very big manifestations.
Okay, so that's probably not going to work then.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do something. So yeah, do it. But if you have panic attacks, real panic attacks, look for professional help as well. Because there are deeper patterns, deeper stress patterns in your body that come up, that get triggered and create a panic attack.
Because one of the things that I've learned, I've had, I mean, I don't know if I told you this, but I've had 2017-ish, I did have a burnout depression for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just because too many things at once. We had a company that didn't work out, startup, my relationship failed.
For a very long time, you stay in sympathetic tuning.
Yeah. I think I was asking for it.
Reaction, fight, flight, continue, excitement, positive things as well. But you didn't drop down into parasympathetic rest and repair. Every day we need to rest and repair.
Yeah.
Otherwise we go out of balance. And that accumulates over the years, and then bam, you have burnout.
That's how it felt. And I mean, it wasn't, I don't know, suicide or any of that, but it was just, you felt just so empty, and it was, like literally no energy left. And so the thoughts got very dark. Like, it's just like you became very, very nihilistic. Nothing made sense. And even, I don't know, doing things that would kind of cheer you up, it was like they couldn't even access me. I was like numb to them.
Yeah.
And what I found out at one point was, because it was so tough to get an appointment in Germany at the time, because I didn't know any of these, people like yourself. I didn't know any of that. That was my moment, how I found out about these things. Because it took months to get an appointment, or weeks basically. And they send you from one to the other. It was super frustrating.
Yeah.
You just feel like shit.
Yeah.
And so at one point I was looking up on Google, which I say you shouldn't do, but I was like, how much worse can it get? I was researching what are some things that you can do. And a lot of it was actually through the body. It was, okay, like, cut out the sugar and basically take certain supplements. Of course, you have to be careful with that, because I said I don't want to take antidepressants. I don't think, I think that's nonsense. But what I'm trying to say here is that I realized that how much of the mental part of, you can actually solve it through the body.
Yeah.
What I was saying to you at the beginning about my moods and my outlook on life, even. So that's what I'm even thinking, for people that have some of these issues sometimes, or they feel like they're generally very negative, and I don't know, that they feel like something's off. A lot of times it might actually also be sitting right in the body and not in the head, as I think, right?
Yeah. But mind and body is very much one and the same system. Mind and body has a very strong influence on one another. And if you want to work with the mind, with emotions, especially then if we talk about trauma or experiences that have not been processed well yet, we need to tap in to the body, because in the body there's physiology, the nervous system, and the nervous system regulates our physiology and regulates our emotions. So you always need a bit of both body and mind.
Now, the interesting thing is, you also, I don't know what's the status of that, but you also work on the somatic, or you have been exposed to somatic therapy, and that,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you're still doing that. You actually introduced me to Marlene, who I interviewed 2 weeks ago, and it's interesting. You actually said to me at the time, I felt kind of bad when you said this, but I think in a way I understand now what you said. You said, like, she's going to be more important for you than me.
Because
at the time.
Because we were talking about stress, and I'm going to make two different distinction between two different types. One is the accumulation of daily life stressors, and they just pile up until you feel overwhelmed. And there is stress that is deeply ingrained in your body, how you approach life. Is life safe? Do you have a place? Do you belong somewhere? The bigger stress factors. And with craniosacral therapy, I can work with accumulated stress. We just push the reset button and unwind the stress that's built up. But why it builds up, that's another question. And then you have to go more in the psychosomatic or the somatic psychology direction, or why I send you to Marlene is for somatic experiencing. And then eventually you went in a different direction, but it's in the same field.
Yeah.
Where actually the mind and body comes together. The physiology, the nervous system, we only have one. And that reflects in our emotional state, in how we approach life, how we process life, and how we process our food, how we deal with our muscles.
Yeah. No, you were right. I have to say that. Again, I think finding out about craniotherapy was incredibly important. Like, I don't think one is better than the other, but I think like
No, it's different.
as an extra component, working with someone like her, because at the time I think I was saying this to I was saying like, I don't need a therapist. Like I've done all this, which by the way, she resolved so many of my things as well. So it's good that I met her. I was not aware. But yeah, I think having those two things in conjunction has been incredibly it has given me a lot of resilience, I feel, even physically, I would say.
Yeah. That's also why at the moment I'm almost finishing my training in somatic experiencing.
Okay, so you're gonna have both.
Yeah. So somatic experiencing is through the physiology, through the body, we work with traumatic experiences. Without going too much into the story, because if a traumatized person has to talk about the trauma, actually you reactivate the pathways, the neurological pathways, and you activate the physiology, and you activate the fear and the panic and whatever emotion is still there related to the trauma. So through the body, we help to regulate the nervous system. If there is implicit memory, we work with the implicit memory of the event. While with craniosacral therapy, we work with the accumulated stress.
Got it. Okay, that's a distinction I was not aware of, but it makes sense. And I guess most people have both, like you said, to some degree, right? They might have these imprints. They might have, I don't know, they might have had accidents, or even like you said, like even surgery.
Car accident, a surgery. There's typically a conflict with surgery. You want to run away, but you're staying because it's good for you. Small robberies. Somebody steals your phone or threatens you, or a situation in which somebody is aggressive to you, or there's so many things that are traumatic. Or you are in school and the teacher made a fool out of you in front of the class. That's also a trauma that will then can make an imprint if you don't process it, if you don't get help to process it. It becomes an imprint, and you might feel unsafe in groups, talking out loud or standing up for yourself in a group. Because trauma it's not in the event, it's not what happens to you. Trauma is how you respond to the event. And some events, everybody will get traumatized because we respond in typical ways. But the trauma it's a trauma when you cannot process the experience. In an ideal situation, something happens to you and you learn from it. You discard, you process the fear, the anger, the sadness, whatever is the negative part. You process and discard the negative, and you keep the learning. That's what we actually want, to go from trauma to freedom. That's what we want. Discard the load, the negative experience, but keep the learning.
So that you don't maybe you don't do it again, or you're more resilient.
Well,
for the future.
If you cross the street without looking and you get an accident with a bike that drives against you, what do you learn next time you have to look?
It's kind of like kids, right? When they put their hand on the stove and it's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that becomes a trauma, they will never come near the stove anymore. But the natural process is, okay, what did I do wrong? Why did this happen? Why does it hurt? Integrate that. How can I avoid that next time? Feel empowered that they will be able to avoid the pain next time. And keep the experience, keep the learning.
It's kind of like a survival mechanism almost, in a way.
Trauma is, we get traumatized because our survival mechanism enters into action, but does not have the possibility to finish the action.
Oh, and it's fascinating. Is there, by the way, again, people are lazy, including myself. People want to have shortcuts. Is there any way, apart from what you already said, when you're at home, you can do some of these things yourself? Are there also maybe supplements or something like that that can help at least support the nervous system in any way?
Yeah, keep a healthy diet overall.
Okay.
And besides that, supplements are very individual. There is not I wouldn't do a one size fits all.
Okay. No, okay. I was just yeah. I'm just looking at things like I'm just looking at ChatGPT right now. It says magnesium, B vitamins, omega-3, vitamin D. So it's basically like all the common ones which help your system.
Have a healthy, balanced diet with fresh fruits, rich vegetables, non-processed. Try to avoid processed food. Try to avoid things out of plastics. The E numbers. Yeah.
So basically anything that would trigger or inflame the body, and then the body has to fight it off. That's stressing the whole system, and then also the nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
The body responds to stress, whether the stress is emotional or chemical, or comes from your diet, or comes from doing too much sports, or environmental stress. Stress is stress for the body, and it will respond with fight, flight, or freeze.
So it isn't a bit of waste of time if I come to you as a patient regularly and then I eat McDonald's every day. That's probably not going to help.
I wouldn't.
It's kind of counterproductive, no?
I don't recommend anyone to eat McDonald's every day, but you have to start somewhere. Yeah. And it's not or it works or it doesn't work. It's not or a waste of time or not a waste of time. It's a process. You have to start the process somewhere. And if you're going to tell the client it's only useful to work on yourself if you do sport every day, if you go to bed in time, if you don't look at blue light after 8 in the evening, if your diet is, there are so many factors involved. Eating McDonald's is only a factor. If you have a perfectly balanced life, and everyday McDonald's is your only not so good thing.
Okay, that's actually no. I don't want to encourage people here, but I see what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah, it's just a factor. It's not recommended, but it's just a factor. Maybe it's interesting to look at how you feel when you eat McDonald's every day, and why do you eat McDonald's every day? And it's a start.
There's a guy that made a whole documentary about this. I don't know if you watched it. He ate McDonald's for 30 days.
Yeah, there are challenges like that or documentaries like that.
It's called Super Size Me. We watched it in school a long time ago. The other thing I'm curious about, you talked about at the very beginning that you also do visceral therapy.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious also if you could briefly explain what that is, how is that different, and why do you also do that?
Visceral therapy. So the viscera, the organs, basically all our internal organs, and viscera, to function well, they have to move in relation to each other. A simple example is, for example, the kidneys. Every time we breathe in and out, a normal breath, the kidneys move 2 centimeters down, 2 centimeters up, 2 centimeters down, 2 centimeters up with every breath. That movement has to be there. If that movement isn't there, if the kidney gets fixated, for example, after kidney inflammation or after surgery or for emotional reasons, it has an influence on your breathing pattern changes, has an effect on the nervous system. your balance, your internal balance, homeostasis will be influenced. Body starts to compensate. Muscles might get tense, and you might end up with a low back pain, for example, because your kidney is not moving every time you breathe.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. For example, the liver is just under our breathing diaphragm. The diaphragm, we breathe in, we breathe out. That goes up and down. Like everybody knows, your belly, your chest becomes bigger when you breathe in. The liver is pushed down and makes a rotation movement. That's necessary for good function. If these sliding surfaces are restricted, you get physical pains, back pain.
Because again, everything's connected. What you said, like it's like this holistic approach.
Yeah, yeah. And I work with the organs a lot because it's a way to regulate the vagal nerve. Again, we're talking about the vagal nerve. Vagal nerve, besides being our social nerve connection, it innervates our digestive system. The biggest part, or a big part of the digestive system.
Does it go through the whole body, the nervous system, the vagal nerve, or where does it actually go?
The vagal nerve, it comes from the base of the skull, goes through the throat. There you have the vocal cord. Then it goes together with the esophagus. It goes to the heart. It goes to the lungs. It splits up at the diaphragm, goes to the liver. So the membranes, the fascia of the liver, the stomach, then the intestines, and a part of the colon, the large intestine. And then we have the pancreas, the duodenum.
Wow, it's everywhere. It's really everywhere.
It does a lot. Yeah.
The other thing I'm also curious about, obviously, as a man, I'm not sure about if you can say something on that, because when you talk about the parasympathetic mode, you talk about relaxation, rest. Does it also impact the sex drive, basically, and or like the libido? Also, I'm thinking about man here. Is there any connection to that as well?
Yes, that's also.
When men have issues with, I mean, nobody talks about this. I've had libido issues before when I had a blockage there, as you know, from a little injury, another injury. I've really collected everything. One doctor once said I'm a case study, but I'm curious, like, is there a way that is there anything that man can do to improve this?
What men can do to improve this? Generally, keep the nervous system balanced. Make sure that you have rest. Make sure that you have this. Yeah, nervous system regulation.
But my question was, it does impact that. So it does impact the libido, or maybe if men have even erectile issues,
Yeah,
it can impact that.
yeah, also related. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, it's again, I'm gladly knock on wood. I don't have that issue, but I feel
the potential of working with the regulation of the nervous system. The nervous system has an impact on everything, every function in the body, because the nervous system is capable to give a survival response, which is our priority. The first priority in life is to survive. Yeah. And if you really come into a situation in which you have to survive, then all the other functions are sort of shut down, or
Right.
go to minimal function, and everything will be in function of survival, running away, fighting, or freezing. And then there's some other, like please and appease is also one. They're more sophisticated.
It's kind of interesting because I was just thinking that procreation is the other main task that you have as a human being, right? Like from a biological perspective, right? Like survival and then procreation. So I'm curious, like why that could be shut off more easily than I mean, yeah, survival comes first, but at least the procreation part.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
How am I going to explain this? We sometimes see infertility in women as well, difficulty to get pregnant, and they try everything in the book to get pregnant, and at some point they just accept, okay, it's not working, not even IVF is working. And once that is accepted and they are a little bit older, they further in life, settled, there's a house, there's a stable job, stable relationship, and once this stability is there, then they do get pregnant. because there is more safety. Possibly one of the reasons is because there is more safety, because the pressure is off. We need a safe environment to raise children.
So you're saying is even
which doesn't mean that we cannot get pregnant when we don't feel safe. There are many people who are traumatized and with very high stress levels and do get pregnant.
But you are saying that craniotherapy or working on the nervous system, regulating that, can also help. There's women who have issues getting pregnant.
Yeah.
That might also have you I don't know, have you had cases like that or heard of cases like that?
Yeah, because with craniosacral therapy we can help to regulate the body. If you work with the nervous system, you automatically have a big impact on the hormonal system as well. It can help to regulate the period and fertility, but it's not the only factor that comes to
of course.
breathing. But it's one of these factors. Yeah, if you already tried a whole load of things, maybe it's worth it to look into the.
That's what I was just thinking, right? It's because it's people have tried everything, nothing's working, and then now very, very relevant issues, because of course, like everyone knows, people unfortunately who want to have children, and then as man or as woman, they have different issues, and I think it's encouraging, which is what I want to kind of spread, right? That it can help. It's not a magic pill, right? But it can help. I'm mindful of time. Sorry.
It's very much overlooked in today's healthcare system. You go to a doctor, they look at your body. You go to the gynecologist, they look at the uterus, ovaries, the gynecological system. If you go to the cardiologist, they look at the heart. Everyone has his specialization. If you go to the psychologist, they look at you start talking about things. But all these systems, they come together in the nervous system. That's the communication system. This is your sensor, where all the information comes together. And if that's dysregulated, then it becomes difficult to regulate, right? With a saying, so if you're not regulated, you're dysregulated. If you're dysregulated, it's difficult to regulate.
I think this is super encouraging. I hope a lot of people will get this message, and I think also being mindful of the time here, because I know we're up. How can people find you? How can they contact you? Where can they also, if you have capacity, book a session with you?
Yeah, so I work in Lisbon and in Cascais, in Portugal. I have my website, so that's cranial and visceral therapy.com. Instagram page, also craniosacral therapy and visceral therapy. That's a new Instagram page. I'm only just starting. So you might go to the Instagram page and think this is not active, but that's because I'm really just starting to put things out on my Instagram page. So welcome, you will be one of my first followers. So there's email address, there's telephone number, there's Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll link it all below so people can contact you.
Yeah.
Suzanne, this was super fun. It's exactly what I envisioned, because again, I think this is such an important thing.
Yeah.
And I feel, again, still a lot of people don't know about it, even though, again, I've said this, I've been to many cities, and sometimes I felt I had the need, and then I've always found someone there. So it seems to be very, very spread out, right?
But that's also a skill that you have. One way or the other, you find the right people to work with.
I'm persistent.
Yes, you're persistent. Yeah. Well, that's a skill. That's quality.
Yeah, that's how I ended up in sales. Anyway, now thank you so much for making the time, and even after the
giving me the
great.
space and the time to share my story.
I think you did pretty well. We fixed the audio glitch at the beginning, and you're getting me excited about. I mean, I'll be in Lisbon, and as we said, like beginning of November.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to to be on that stretcher again, and then work a little bit on my nervous system.
Yeah, good regulation. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Resources.
Then thank you so much again. If you could stay on for a second, just for the recording, it should almost be done. And then See you around. See you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good time. Bye.